So here's the thing about
The Jungle Cruise.
the movie
And the ride.
and a little bit the ride, but like
Mostly the movie.
We're doing movies this season, so here's the thing about the Jungle Cruise with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson,
Emily Blunt, Jack Whitehall, and a bunch of other people.
Bad.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of good stuff to say about this movie.
We're going to tear this movie to shreds.
We were pretty nice to all the Halloween movies last week.
We were pretty nice to
and we really, really don't have a lot of nice stuff to say about this movie. If you really liked this movie and feel you're going to be upset by us saying mean things, Get over it.
Or news, but get over it.
Get over it, or stop listening. I mean, I don't. Whatever.
Do you?
Whatever. Do you?
But get over it.
So,
I just like
I
just want to be like when we were coming up with season ideas, we were like, yeah, like good movies. Let's be real positive.
And we had one idea for a good movie, and it's coming up, and you're gonna know which one it is because we're gonna get really involved.
It's gonna be really great. And then we saw The Green Knight, and we're like, okay, so some movies are really bad still. Yeah. And I was like, Grace, consider. And then we're like, yes. And I was like, okay, Grace, consider another thing. The Jungle Cruise movie is very bad. Please come to the movie theater.
The Jungle Cruise and The Green Knight in tandem are the reason why this season we are also talking about movies that are way behind their times.
Yeah.
2 movies that we went and paid money for. We paid money for these movies.
For you.
And, boy, was it not worth it. I mean, it was worth it because now we're talking about it now.
And there's so much to talk about. Okay, so the plot of the Jungle Cruise.
We should probably jump right in.
Forget that you watched if you've ever been to Disneyland, forget that. It is not about that. It is more about, like, pirates meets National Treasure.
Meets the Mummy.
And
every other adventure movie, but
it's
just
so
like
cliche.
Blend them all up together and pour them out and bon appetit.
Yes.
So that is part of why the movie is bad. Oh, you know what? Actually, before we jump further into this, you'll notice we're eating Skittles as our snack today. And if you want to know why, you should subscribe to us on Patreon and watch our So Here's the Thing After Hours video with our roommate Bex. Anyway.
Yeah.
The plot of the movie. Yeah. It's not the ride, except for the first 10 minutes, in which it's just the ride. Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I'm just gonna say his whole name, I guess, is like, hello, I will take you on a 5-second Jungle Cruise, where I would just say all the jokes. I will say
all
the
of
backside of
Disney
water.
Jokes.
Not even the good ones, like the bad ones. It's fine. It's neither here nor there. And then it's like, okay, we did it.
Yeah, we did the ride. Now we're not making any more references to the ride throughout the rest of the movie.
Accurate.
Which, not to get too much into this right now, but like with other ride movies, Pirates, Haunted Mansion, it's interspersed throughout, right? It's a story, and a ride is not a story, obviously. It's all kind of a story, but like, mostly it's 3 minutes of like, woo!
Yeah.
So, those movies take like elements from the ride and intersperse them throughout. So it's like, this is the idea of that one ride that you had fun on as a kid.
And it takes it throughout the whole movie. This one literally was the first little section. They're like, we did it. Now we can make whatever movie we were going to make.
Which is not why it's behind its time.
No, it just makes it a bad movie.
It just makes it bad.
Like, watch The Haunted Mansion. That is how you make a ride movie.
Correct.
If you weren't here last week, be here. But, like, The Haunted Mansion is absolutely how you make... Because you bring in the little bits, but it's not about it. It's not Haunted Mansion Muppets, because Grace got really mad. Because
I'm so sorry. But it's for people who like Haunted Mansion, not the Muppets.
It was just the ride.
So the Pepe voice wasn't right. I'm sorry. And it shouldn't have been Pepe anyway. It should have been Rizzo. All right, I'm done talking about Muppet Haunted Mansion.
But that's how you do a correct ride. No.
That's how you do a correct movie.
The original Haunted Mansion is how you do a correct movie. This is an exact example of how to not do a right movie.
Yes. So he does the ride in the first 10 minutes. He's a skipper for a tour boat. He's hard on his luck, or down on his luck, or whatever the phrase is.
He's poor.
Enter the exact character from The Mummy that Rachel Weisz plays, only this time it's played by Emily Blunt, and she's good at fighting for some reason that is not explained. she's like trying to recover some sort of artifact. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of got tangled a little bit. There's a magic glowing flower. Yeah.
I don't even remember some of this. It was so non-specific.
That heals people. So yes, you have heard that before.
Yes.
So yeah, they're trying to look for this magic healing flower.
And she's like, I have to go get it from South America. And I'm gonna bring my idiot brother with me for no reason at all.
Yeah.
And I'm glad she does, because otherwise I might have walked out. I honestly, he was like the only thing worth watching in this film.
Yeah.
And honestly, I could just watch Jack Whitehall do stand-up. I don't have to watch
You don't
this
have
movie.
to watch it.
I could watch his stand-up or anything else he's ever done, to be quite honest.
Yeah, because this is very bad.
If he had not been in it, I probably would have walked out. So thank you, Jack Whitehall, for being present. He cons them into buying tickets to his jungle cruise. The Rock cons them into buying tickets to his jungle cruise. Because she's
like, I'm here for the flowers. Somebody take me up the river.
Right.
And he's like, you crazy. And then she has like a stolen artifact or whatever, and so he's like, you ain't crazy.
He's like, you're not crazy. I want that stolen artifact. We don't know why. I mean, there's a whole bit with
we do figure it out.
We do figure it out. Not at that point, though.
No, not at that point. We're very confused.
We don't know why. But he's like trying to not get her to buy the boat ride with Paul Giamatti at that point.
Yeah.
Paul Giamatti is also in this movie. For 5 minutes for no reason. I mean, I make your money, Paul Giamatti, but like, what the?
Also, Disney owns people's souls, so
yes. So then he does this weird bit with a trained tiger, which was very cheap.
Okay, but you have to bring the tiger up so that later we can say the tiger bit. So the one good line of this whole movie comes, they're on the boat, right? And then they realize that the tiger was actually a pet. And Jack goes down where the little tiger guy is, and he goes, I'm going to pet you now, and you're not going to bite me. Which is just so funny, because we live with a little monster.
And she barks at us and bites us all day long.
And we have to tell that to her every day. Like, going to pet you, and you're not going to bite me.
Yep.
So that was worth it.
Yeah.
That's what we paid $5.
That's what we paid, and yeah, that's true. We did not pay that much money for the movie. We went to see it on a Tuesday, but like, still not
not
$5
too many.
$5 too many.
But anyways, so
moving on, they lie and then get into trouble in the jungle. All of a sudden, Nazi is chasing them because he also wants the flower and he knows about the flower.
Yeah, that is.
We don't know really. Well, I guess Emily Blunt meets him in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, but we still don't know why he
really wants the flower. I think
they're like we're assuming World War.
It's implied that it's happening for Nazi purposes, and that's pretty much all we get. Like somewhere along the line, one thing leads to another, and he uses this to oppress and exterminate the Jews. But they don't really walk us through that. They just kind of expect us to assume that because he has a German accent and it is pre-World War II. So they're really expecting a lot from the audience. They get caught. Do they wash ashore, or do they on purpose go visit the indigenous population?
The Rock, they have a dealio. Because the indigenous people are in the first, the Jungle Cruise, the fake one.
That's right, yes.
And he's like, yeah, we'll share the profits. We make money. I don't know.
Yeah, that certainly fixes all of this colonization.
It's so terrible. I'm not trying to defend it. I'm trying to tell you what happened.
I know. Oh, my God. Anyway,
objectively, it's very hard to tell you objectively what happened, because it's very bad. So I think that there's some sort of deal.
Yeah, Dwayne The Rock Johnson makes a deal with the indigenous population to get the British people, which, by the way, Emily Blunt and Jack Whitehall are obviously British, and they come from a colonizer family. They're very wealthy. Yeah. And so they have an offline... He makes a deal with the indigenous population to, kind of scare them into leaving, yeah. I think. And then Emily Blunt finds out that it was all a trick, and they say and do a bunch of shit that is super, super anti-indigenous, and,
bad.
infantilizing and patronizing. It's very yikes.
It's
but we
horrible.
find out
More to come.
multiple things in this whole scene, which is one that somebody, the German guy, has brought back to life.
Yeah, the German guys brought back to life
3 Spanish conquistadors from the time in which South America was initially being
they
colonized.
were cursed.
The scout ants, as you will, came to do the terrible things first, and then bring more people to do the terrible things. So
these are the first people.
These are the first guys, and they are very decayed at this point. One of them
Grace likes the bees.
is made of bees. And I should have worn my bee earrings for this episode. I'm kicking myself for not doing that.
We'll switch them halfway
One
through.
of them is made of bees.
It's actually the only best animated
I can't make that any clearer. Like, this is what they chose to do with the villains, is vague Nazi and bees. So they come back to life. The German guy brings them back to life. And they
attack
this indigenous village that winds up, you should know, helping the white people, essentially.
Yeah.
On their mission to find this fucking flower. Which, again, why is Emily Blunt looking for it? She wants it
Healing.
for
Science.
For science. It's not even like her mom is dying or something. There's not even a
For science.
She's like, I would like it for science.
I would like it to show up all the men.
Science. I do science.
I science.
I science. And so the indigenous population agrees to help her.
Which
I know
we're gonna get into this later, but like
the conquistadors come about and raise the village to the ground. Like, literally, there's a massacre.
Murder.
On these native people.
Much death.
Massacre. There's so much death.
Death.
And we're saying it lightly because it's a Disney movie and it was such a misfire, but it actually is extremely, extremely traumatizing. It's so gruesome and gross, the fact that they would put that into the narrative.
They just offhandedly be like, hey, action sequence, and we're like, oh my god.
By the way, the only people that die in this movie are the indigenous, the native people, who didn't even get individual names. They just defended the white people and then they died for it.
It's horrible.
So after that horrific scene, we think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson dies as well.
Dead.
But actually,
he doesn't,
guys, because he's
also a conquistador.
A Spanish conquistador who was part of the crew that is now made of bees.
You heard that right, folks.
Dwayne, the Pacific Islander Rock Johnson, is a Spanish conquistador who has been cursed with eternal life. He can never go within he can never leave
the
more
river?
than 100 something
I don't know
feet
if they
of
really
the banks of the river. I think they do specify it, which was pointless. Like, it would have been better to leave it ambiguous. Nobody cares. He can't leave the banks of the river. He's forced to live forever. So what we find out in essence here is that because he's been cursed with eternal life and he can't leave the banks of the Amazon River in the specific location, that he was the one who brought about all of the colonization of this town with all the goddamn Europeans who are taking jungle vacations.
And it's not even like, oh yeah, I did a bad thing. It's like, yeah, no, I built a city.
I built a city. Life. You should be proud of me.
I did these things.
In my, however many, 200, 300 years.
Math.
In this place, I absolutely stole all this land from the people who owned it first and built a town.
Made them my actor puppets.
Yeah, made them my actor puppets. Great, we love to see it. So, I'm trying to even remember how this movie ends, but somehow
they find the tree.
They do find the tree.
They have to go in the water, and Emily Blunt booked a river cruise because she can't swim, and they're like, okay, but you have to because you're small or whatever. Blah blah blah. Plot point. But I related really hard because it was active footage of me also getting in the water. Literally,
she can't swim.
2 months. I mean, I
Karli
know how to
can
swim. I know how to swim, but I'm
Emily
definitely
Blunt's
afraid
character can't swim.
Definitely afraid of the natural bodies of water. So I've been to Hawaii, and it's fun because they push me into the water, like, get in there, anyways. And it's just me climbing on top of my dad, being like, no. And so it's like The Rock, my dad. And then Emily Blunt, like, trying to climb on top to get her body out of the water.
No,
and
no.
I was like, LOL, that was me.
Like, I don't want to do this.
The only other part of the movie I thought was funny. It wasn't even that long the second time when I saw it with Grace. I was like, oh. It was funnier the first time.
It's a funny joke, but it's
not funny because you're like, I don't care if she can't swim. A stupid joke. It's funny because I specifically did that action, and that is the only reason it is funny.
Somehow they all get separated because Jack Whitehall then gets
he's like
captured,
injured or whatever, so he stays,
and he gets captured by the German guy
behind. Yeah, he gets captured by the German guy,
and then he is faced with, and I don't know. I truly don't remember why he was faced with this option, but the German guy was basically like...
He was like, tell me the location.
Tell me where your sister is, or I will literally blow this entire village of native people up. And then Jack Whitehall says... And he thinks about it for a second, and I'm like, excuse me?
No.
But then he's like, no, I will not blow up this entire village. And... I shit you not, supposed to see that as a win. That's a win in this movie. They're like, oh yeah, he did a really good and noble thing right there.
Good
Even though he sold out his sister because it was important for the villagers. I'm like, fuck yes, it was important for the villagers.
That was the only
say he was gonna kill Emily Blunt. I mean, it is kind of implied, but he doesn't say it.
No, he just wants
and
the
he just
magic
wants the flower. There's still so many options there.
More death.
Probably for Nazi purposes, but they also don't really say that. So, I don't know. Maybe he has an ailing relative. This is what we find out about the fucking... Which, again, in the second half, we're going to really dive into...
There's so much to dive into.
What a mess this is we find out that the main kind of Spanish conquistador guy, he is not made out of bees or honey, or...
snakes.
Snakes, that's right. He's made out of snakes.
He's made out of snakes.
Which is just so much funnier saying it out loud later. Like, he's made out of snakes.
He's made out of snakes. The other guy's made out of bees.
His daughter was sick in Spain. And so apparently he sailed to South America because he had heard of this flower that heals all ills, but
she's already dead by the time they make it there. I mean, we don't know that.
We don't know that.
But, like, scientifically...
Again, I'm saving it because I don't want to jump into it. I want to finish explaining the story. This has taken so long. This movie
we keep getting distracted.
So much story that is also absolutely nothing.
Long story short, they make it, the tree, like, glows, but then, like, was done glowing, and there was only one petal, and so they fight about it, and...
They get the one petal, though.
They get the one petal and save... the rock from death.
That's right. The rock turns into stone with the other guys.
All the conquistadors
they turn into stone because they can't win, and also they're not even fully human. So, like, we knew they were not going to last long anyway.
Yeah.
I guess the only other person who is not indigenous who dies is the German villain who gets, like, squished.
Squished by a giant rock.
But that is literally the only person that dies that is not.
Yeah. It's bad.
It's bad. It's bad. It's bad.
So
it's bad.
But no, they save the rock.
They save the rock.
And then they all go home.
To London. The rock also goes to London because the curse is broken. So he gets to live his life.
Magic flower.
Because also he and Emily Blunt fall in love. Obviously.
So weird.
Even though it's weird. It's uncomfortable and weird, and they're good actors, and you can tell that they are trying. Like, they're not... The acting itself from those two wasn't bad.
No, the script was
horrible.
But also they had friend energy.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of romantic chemistry.
They don't have a lot of chemistry romance-wise. It's more like, you're my friend, my buddy.
Which, again, does not make it behind its time. No, it just makes it a bad movie. This is, in fact, a bad movie, and also way behind its time. And we are going to get into that just in a second here after the break.
See you on the flip side.
And we're back.
Ready to roast.
Ready to roast. All
ready to roast and toast them. Well,
let's start
with the blaring fact.
The blaring, blatant, obvious racism.
Horrible!
It's so bad.
So bad. They just treat them so terribly. They're not people.
I think it's most concisely identified in this movie in the scene when the conquistadors attack, which, mind you, this is the people who initially razed this village to the ground. The people who came and colonized it to begin with, and absolutely took these indigenous people's kindnesses and spat in their face and destroyed their lives.
Yeah, so this village is actually the village that was, like, in charge of, like, the health and maintenance and using the tree. Like, the tree and the healing power, that was their village. That was something that they did. That was something that was their thing or whatever.
They were part of maintaining
the tree and like dealing out the magic when they needed to,
which they did and peacefully for several thousand years. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then the conquistadors. I said that really weird, but they come in and they're like dying, and so then the village heals them, saves their lives, and they're like, give it to me.
The main conquistador villain is like, okay, well, but I want it for my sick daughter. Now, again, and this is where I'm going to get into it. In the 1500s, I'm going to be generous and say maybe the 1500s this was happening.
Yeah.
In the 1500s, when you sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, if your daughter is sick enough when you leave for no medicine to work, that she needs a magic fucking leaf or petal to be healed, she's done dead. So 5 days into your journey. She's dead. Give up, move on. Like, it's, and you would know this. Like, it's just ridiculous
to tree doesn't bring try to back from
humanize conquistadors in that way. Not only is it insulting to say that that's why they destroyed indigenous populations in South America, it is completely unrealistic. And I know it's a Disney movie, but it's unrealistic to an embarrassing degree. Like, you don't need to know any prior details about that. You just need to have basic reasoning skills to understand that that is ridiculous.
And I think the most ridiculous part is, like, they tell the story and they're like in the beginning, and Emily Blunt's like, this is why I need to go get the flower. And she's like, it was lost, blah, 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 blah. And then Dwayne The Rock Johnson tells the story again, is like, well, actually, and I'm like, no, what you just said was worse.
No, it's like, so much worse.
You just made it worse, though. Do you get how that's worse?
You get how that's worse.
I was like, nothing. I was just like sitting there in the theater being like, I'm confused, because like your tone is telling me that things were like actually from our side of the story. I was like, no, from
our side of the
your side of the story, you are absolutely villains.
And the way Dwayne Johnson's character interacts with, it's like, obviously these three conquistadors are still part of the villain crew of this movie. But Dwayne The Rock Johnson obviously is the hero of the story, and he is given a free pass, essentially,
because he didn't murder somebody.
Because finally, when it got to the point where his friend was gonna kill this indigenous village in order to get this fucking flower, he was like, no, stop.
With that much energy.
And, like, at that point, it's too late for him to actually do anything about this entire village getting destroyed. So this village gets destroyed, and then somehow these people find it in the goodness of their hearts to actually forgive him over the, 300 years that he lives through life. Yeah. And he still brings these motherfuckers back to their lives to inflict the same trauma and 300 years later.
Emily
again
Blunt has their, stolen key thingy that makes the tree bloom. She has it.
That's right.
It is stolen. It's found in a museum, so it has been already taken.
She doesn't steal it from them. She doesn't steal it from them, but she has it.
She knows that it's theirs. And they're like, give it back, and she's like, no, I got to do some science stuff.
She's like, no, in the name of science, I'm taking this, which is the most fucked off colonizer narrative I have ever seen, and the fact
just so bluntly, objectively,
no, I actually know, as a white person, I know better.
I'm gonna do it for good. I'm like, it's their,
it's the sickest thing.
It's their key thingy. I don't know what it is.
It's the sickest thing that contemporary media does, is they take a white woman who does something that maybe traditionally, in, the 60s, women weren't doing. They're like, she does science, so we're progressive. And then that she apparently is supposed to forgive everything that she does throughout the movie. There was one point What? How can you describe the hat scene when she's in the indigenous village talking to Trader Sam? So if you've been on the ride, there is a character no longer on the ride. There was a character called Trader Sam, which is what's funny is I don't know that Trader Sam was actually any more racist than like the entire ride is. Yeah. Like Trader Sam, maybe the name was a little bit colonizing. Yeah. It feels actually a little bit minstrelly to me, but but the character was it's supposed to be like a local indigenous person who does do trade with the, you know, Jungle Cruise skipper that you're on the boat with. Yeah. And so like I don't know. It's they don't give that character a bad reputation. It's like, hey, that's my friend Trader Sam, and we do business together.
There were other parts of the ride that were much worse.
There's other parts of the ride that are like, blatantly like, hey, look at these indigenous people who are actually not human.
Yeah.
And they're gone now, which we'll get to in a second. But they have a character named Trader Sam, who is one of the indigenous characters in the movie.
Yeah. So when they're first taken hostage, they're like taken to Trader Sam, and they're like putting on an act, and then as soon as they realize that it is an act, blah 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 blah, Trader Sam's like, "Come on, man, rock, like we done." And so then they start talking
we
like
tried to do the act,
people
and you need to give it up.
And Emily Blunt's like, "Look, I have your thing that I'm not gonna give you. Can you tell me about it? Can you like give me information?" And then I think her line, like, because
Trader Sam, who is a woman who in this universe knows English, like she knows English.
They're having a conversation.
And Emily Blunt at this point knows that she knows English. She's been speaking to her in English.
Yeah,
and is communicating perfectly fine.
Yeah, and
in Emily Blunt's native language.
Yes.
Shockingly enough, actually. Well, and shockingly only because of what happens next. Yeah. Because then Trader Sam, I don't know. They're sitting in, like, a tent together and talking about this artifact. Mm-hmm. I'm, like, kind of trying to work out some kind of trade. Yeah. And Trader Sam picks up Emily Blunt's hat, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, that's my hat. Do you like that? You can have my hat." And it's like, what
it's the so fuck? Bad.
It's like she's talking to a baby. It's like, "Oh, yeah, you can have my hat. Just give me this priceless key that is an integral part of your community. And has been gone for years and has been causing,
you don't get to come.
Trauma to my house." So they don't give the key
but
back.
like just the way that they were talking about it. Also, jumping to the end, they never give it back.
They never give it back.
She's like, "I'll bring it back," but they don't. They never do. They just skip to they're in London and we've never seen them again.
She's like, "Actually, I need this for science." Bye.
Never see them again. She's like, we know it's stolen. We know it belongs to them, and you never fix it. Like that thing. I think that's like there's so many bad things. But that really makes.
I think what's so insulting is that they clearly know that it was wrong that those things were stolen from the indigenous people, and that the writers of the movie know that stealing from indigenous people is wrong, because the inciting incident of like everything happening right now is the colonizers stealing from the indigenous people, and they're the villains because they stole from the natives. So then why
is Emily Blunt
is it okay for Emily Blunt and The Rock to steal from the natives at the end? They just drop that narrative like halfway through the movie. They're like, "Okay, well, we used the indigenous people for what we wanted them for, and now we're done.
And now we're done with them. We'll never see them again.
We're on to the next part of the plot. You will never see them again." Whatever they say in, if you've ever seen the Zach Morris's trash, I think is it Comedy Central? It's something like that. It's 5-minute videos. It's the best. I'm doing a plug for them. I'm not being paid for this. It's great. But the guy basically talks about all the side characters that pop in and out of the show. And we're like, we never see them again. Probably because they fucking killed themselves. And that's how it feels with these characters.
Except they didn't kill themselves. They were murdered.
They were probably murdered. In reality is what happened. It's
because they just are. They're just like... no names, no identities, and they're just like murder.
Yeah, they just all of the warriors, but not just warriors, also just civilians.
Civilians, people living in the village, just chilling.
Like, these conquistadors come in and they wreak havoc on this village. Then the indigenous people defend and, in essence, save Emily Blunt, Jack Whitehall, and then Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, like, he dies, except that he doesn't die. We talked about it in the first half.
But they're trying to save him.
But they're trying to save him, and they successfully save
the other two.
Yeah. At so much cost to them. Yeah. And then they don't even receive their artifact back.
They don't get their thing back. Or a flower or anything. Like...
They don't even save a flower because the tree only blooms when it's touched by, is it moonlight?
Yeah, it's like something like full moon or something.
Yeah, it's like a full moon. The tree has to be touched by the full moon, and it's in this like dark cavern. And so basically how it happens is they have to close the cavern and the flowers die. And that is a little bit less of a like, that's more of a like, the vague Nazi guy is chasing them. But they couldn't even save them a flower.
I think because I think at the end they get 2 flowers. I missed it the first time because it was very confusing. One flower is to save the rock, and then they take the other one back for science.
That's right.
And I'm like, girl,
like,
no. No, give it back. Give everything back.
Give it back.
Give it all back.
Land back, motherfuckers.
Everyone nowadays also.
Yeah. I think back. And this is behind its time is hard to say because there is a lot of poor Indigenous representation in the media and not nearly enough representation with content that's actually produced and written by Indigenous people. And so, like, unfortunately, it might not be as behind the times as we'd like it to be.
We're gonna just say it is.
But it's worth noting, like,
why are we still doing
all of this rhetoric is so dated and problematic. And we've been having conversations about it for the past 2 years in very public spheres. And so the fact that, like, Disney felt comfortable greenlighting this movie and there was no discourse about it. I mean, that's part of the reason we're talking about it now is because we're not, with the exception of maybe one, this season, we're not talking about movies that were behind their times that everybody was aware were dumpster trash fires. Yeah. We're talking about movies that people actually genuinely reviewed fairly positively, and we went and watched and we were like, what the ever-loving fuck?
And here's the other thing, though. The one reason I'll disagree with you that I'm like, you're like, the times are suck. Disney knows because
that's true.
Because they changed the ride. The ride has been is racist. But so we were like, oh my god, because we went.
That's
in case
right.
You guys remember, we weren't gonna go because we're like, we don't want to see it. And then the line was short. We're like, okay, well, I feel like we have to so that we can like.
We're doing this episode.
If we paid the money to see the movie, we might as well go on the ride. We're already here. So we go on it. And I'm like, going around the beds. And I was like, that's different. They've changed it. They took it out. They took the racist. I mean, they didn't take all of it because, like, the Jungle Cruise at its core.
They did as hell.
But they, like,
take Trader Sam out,
and then put
them in the movie.
Like, all of the things that were bad, that we remember of the racism from the ride, they took out. But then they kept it in the movie. I'm like, you knew, though. So you knew because you changed the ride. So you knew it was wrong. Why did you think it was okay to put it in the movie then?
And you thought if you put a white woman in STEM and made Trader Sam a woman, that would fix everything.
It blew my mind because, like, when I first knew that they were coming up with Jungle Cruise, I'm like, what are you doing? And then my sister's like, no, this is a good thing because they're going to be able to fix the racism.
And just to go see this? They sure as hell could have. Do you know what would have been a great movie?
We've come up with several.
Yeah, we've come up with a lot of really good movies, but you know who is becoming an action star right now? Who could have been a fantastic skipper in and actually been a part of the community that he was initially from is Kumail Nanjiani. Yeah. Like, set it in the jungles of India instead of South America. The ride goes all over the place. You can set it in any jungle you want because the point of the ride is that you go through all the jungles, which is also kind of roundabout racist. But you can have Kumail Nanjiani be the skipper, and then maybe Jamila Jamil comes in, and they have a fun romance. Like, there's so many options. But, like, also, the skipper should be a comedian. This is my... my hot take that is not, this has nothing to do with how ahead of or behind the times the movie is. This has to do with me thinking, like, you missed the point of the ride. The only reason to go on the ride, because the ride has always been racist, and it has never been exciting. It's a boring-ass ride. It is to rest your feet. The only reason to go on the ride is because the skippers get to tell jokes, and if you get a good skipper, if you get a good desperate LA comedian trying to make a buck and gain an audience
and practice their type
5, then it ends up being super fun. So I'm like, there's so many South Asian comedians right now.
So many.
Super sexy South Asian comedians. I'm going to see Hassan Minaj in a week and a half. I just have to plug that because I want to flex on everybody.
Next week.
I'm really excited. But there are a lot of comedians, not just South Asian, but comedians of all nationalities with so much fame right now because Netflix has done a whole thing where they're like, comedy! And their names are very big right now. And so I'm like, why would you not take that opportunity? If you're gonna do the Jungle Cruise, make it, first of all, make it not, and they didn't make it a white, but that's what's crazy, is they like, Dwayne The Rock Johnson is not a comedian, so I wish it could have been a comedian. I think that would have been funnier and it would have worked better and would have translated from the ride better.
Yes.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson is not white.
Yeah.
He is Pacific Islander, yes?
I believe so.
Yeah. He's not Hawaiian. Jason Momoa is Hawaiian. Dwayne The Rock Johnson's Pacific Islander. And I'm not here to come down on Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
No.
Dwayne, make your money. You're very talented. The fact that you're a WWE wrestler and now are like an actor doing like pretty serious roles, very impressive.
Yeah.
I could never do it. You're great.
We like you.
And also make your money. Do what you gotta do.
But why?
I'm just shook that like that was the take that they had. Was like, oh, Dwayne is light-skinned so he can pass as a Spanish white, not like Hispanic as we know today, which is, you know, people from Spain coming over, but also, you know, blending is the wrong word. There's a lot of trauma associated with that, but with indigenous populations from South America who traditionally have darker skins. But because he is white passing, light-skinned or white passing, however you want to describe it, like, we're gonna make him a Spanish conquistador. I'm like,
it just is icky.
It's very icky. Like, there's probably a way you could have honored his Pacific Islander heritage in a movie. There would have been
make
some
a new
gymnastics.
plot. Throw this one in the garbage.
Throw it in the garbage.
Also, because we didn't even talk about the, like, queer baiting that happens. Because Jack Whitehall...
There's so much racism, it's almost not even worth bringing up.
Not worth it, but I'm just gonna just, like, slightly throw it in there, as much as they did, which is, my interests lie elsewhere.
That's what he says.
That's it, guys.
Which I would also like to point out, that they copped so hard from The Mummy, but then... tried to incorporate
nothing.
Messaging about... They didn't even try to incorporate messaging about race. They they messed with... It's hard to explain what they did. They just took The Mummy and they made it worse. But they used the same archetypes from The Mummy.
Yeah.
Because then, they have
like, if you're gonna say it, just say it.
Idiot... queer-coded brother trotting around along with them, just like they do in The Mummy.
Yeah.
And, like, don't coast off of, like... Stop queerbaiting. Don't tell us he's gay if he's not gonna say or do gay things.
Yeah. That's the other thing. He doesn't do any gay things.
He doesn't do any gay shit! The only gay shit he does is bring, like, 80 suitcases onto the Jungle Cruise, which... The other thing is, he gets away with the, like, privileged bullshit that he pulls in the movie, and it's funny because they're making a queer male joke, which also is problematic. Like, because he's a little bit high maintenance, and like Goofy, people are not
Us.
people. I am okay with him doing the privileged stuff and him doing the like, you know,
I have 20 suitcases.
Yeah, exactly. I have 20 suitcases and I am wealthy and white and I just don't want to engage in this culture in a meaningful way, so I'm not going to. It's like funny because we're supposed to view him as silly, but Emily Blunt does the same thing. Or Emily Blunt's character does the same thing. And we're supposed to see it as like charming and like quirky.
Yeah. Our hero.
Like, it's not cute. She also, and this is kind of unrelated, but kind of related. There's a whole scene where she picks a lock, and she's like, yes, I learned this from the pickpockets of Delhi. Oh, it's something like that.
Yeah.
Implying that her family lived in New Delhi, in India, which is at the time that this was happening, a colony of England. I mean, it's still a colony of England, yes? I would have to research that. Don't quote me on that. I don't know a lot about where we landed with British colonization. I know it's not good.
It's bad.
I know it's bad. I know a lot more about
Which Disney, you knew
America.
that when you made Mary Poppins.
Yeah!
What?
Disney knew colonization was bad when they made Mary Poppins, and then in this movie they were like, actually, forget all that.
So it is behind its time.
This and the new Mary Poppins, they're just using Emily Blunt to be like, actually, colonization was a good thing. Like, I'm looking at Emily like, Emily, get the fuck out. Like, I thought I liked Emily Blunt. I think I still do, but she keeps doing these projects that make me be like, do I? What are you signing up for, man?
We like the old Emily Blunt.
We like the Emily Blunt of Devil
Before
Wears
she
Prada.
got famous.
Maybe Salmon Fishing in the Yemen. Although, as I say that title back to myself, I'm like, I don't know if I want to rewatch that one. It sounds like it probably... It's a movie about Yemen that centers around two white people, and I just don't think it probably is aged all that well. So, strike that last one.
Stay tuned.
Devil Wears Prada only.
We love Devil Wears Prada.
Love Devil Wears Prada. All that to say, is there anything we haven't covered? There probably is.
Probably.
I can't even begin to tell you how much of a dumpster fire this is. But I think the biggest takeaway is that it's, and we're probably going to have to put a content warning on this one too, just...
Yeah, that's fair.
So that nobody listens to us retelling this story
really
of colonization that Disney told. I mean, like, there's no content in this movie that's objectionable by, like, MPAA standards.
Mm-hmm. It is a it still
it's
follows
a
on
Disney movie.
It's a Disney movie in the same way that like Pirates of the Caribbean, where you're gonna see some like stab.
Yeah, you're gonna see some stabby stabs, but it's not. There's nothing that is like, you know, grotesquely traumatizing, except for the fact that there is a constant like rod of colonization and no writing of those evils throughout the whole movie. And that, in and of itself, deserves a content warning. Us talking about that deserves a content warning.
I love content warnings. I said that really kind of sarcastically.
Were we watching that did a really good... Oh, it was You.
Yeah, weirdly enough.
Weirdly enough. Third season of You is great, guys. Watch it. I was telling Carly, I'm mad that the hype was so strong for the first season, because now it has nowhere to go. Everyone just gets equally hyped for each new season, but each new season of the show You has gotten consistently better. Like, people should... People should acknowledge that. This new season is so good. So good. Totally unrelated. It did good with content warnings. We're going to put it on this. It's a moot point to ask Disney to put a content warning on the Jungle Cruise, because they don't see it as traumatizing because...
But they know they did something wrong because they changed the ride. End of statement.
I just feel like this movie was locked and loaded before summer of 2020, and they thought that they could get away with it still, though, which is fucked. You might be right. It's so fucked.
It's gross.
I'm not going to say I would not have gone to Disneyland, because it was also a fun trip, and, like, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, but I am a little annoyed that we bought our tickets by the time we watched this movie, because I'm like, God damn it, this is not it. No. This is not it.
It's bad.
Anyway, we said that we were going to get really mean about Disney, and we did.
We did. So, two sides
Disney,
to every coin.
What the fuck? what the fuck was this?
Why did you do this?
Why'd you do this?
You knew it was wrong.
Like, I know that Disney is an evil corporation. I'm aware of that.
And we know that you're going to queerbait us till the end of time. But, like, this one was, like, not the queerbaiting, but the racism was just...
off the cuff. Like, not off the cuff. That's not the phrase I'm looking for. Off the chain.
Off the rails.
Off the rails. It was off the fucking rails. I can't believe anyone greenlit this.
I also can't believe... talk about as much as we are.
No one's upset
Why is
about
no one
it.
as upset about this as we are?
I think that it's worth pointing out that you should watch Indigenous content written and produced by Indigenous people. Yes. There is a good amount of it coming out now.
Sound Theater's got some stuff that's happening.
Ooh, yes.
Just to plug that in
a
there.
Second, we're going to plug something for that for you. But before we do that, we're going to plug Reservation Dogs on FX.
Oh my gosh.
Reservation Dogs.
It also has content warnings. I think that it does an okay job, but just know that, like,
it's very intense.
It's very intense.
There's a content warning, and take it the fuck seriously.
Take it one step farther than I think it does.
Yeah.
I wish it gave it just a little bit more. So, but do watch it because it is good. But do be prepared and take the thing.
The other one is Rutherford Falls. No content warnings. It's just great.
So cute.
It's just delightful.
Oh my god.
It's on Peacock. You can do a free trial. It's great.
These
You'll
things
love
are
it.
so good.
You'll love it.
This was healing to, like, end on good notes.
And then
we did this.
Fellow podcaster Rebecca Nagel does a podcast called This Land. First season talks about the Oklahoma land rights battle, which was won. But it's fun to go on the journey and learn more about that. And then the second one talks about residential schools and also the Indian Child Welfare Act, which is actually still in the courts right now and might go to the Supreme Court, which would be a real nail biter in a really stressful way. So you should pay attention to that.
Sound Theater's thing is Changer, a radio show.
Cool.
And it's beautiful. They're coming out with Changer, a hand telling, I think is what it actually is, and that'll be a video with Indigenous ASL. So, real cool stuff happening there.
Super
I
tight.
realized I just was like Sound Theater, and I didn't actually give them, like, some of the things that you could actually go find. But Changer the radio show is where you get podcasts and Spotify and all those fun things as well. So,
love that.
Do go
Same
listen
avenues that you listen to this on.
Okay.
Whoa. And lastly, what we need to plug is why we are recording this so late in the evening.
It's true.
On a Wednesday night.
If anyone is listening and it is Saturday, tomorrow, Sunday, I don't know when people are listening to, is Annie and Karli's show. Annie, you've heard on our podcast many a times before. We are doing a show with Sound Theater, Ghost of Living Flesh. It is at 12th Avenue Arts. Tickets are really just like pay what you can type of thing.
Yeah.
They're online. They're on Sound Theater's webpage. You can find it there. Or you can just come over to 12th Avenue Arts. So it starts at 7.
I think 7. 7 sounds right.
There. The house opens at 6:30. Please don't come at 7 because I have to work the box office and I will be annoyed at you. So come between like 6:30 to 6:45.
I will be there at 6:45.
So meet Grace. Meet us in person. But yeah, if you are listening and you want to come do that, you should come stop by.
All of our former guest stars, minus I guess Megan Reinbold and Ellie Cook, are going to be in the show. And
because Andrea will be there too.
Yeah,
so.
It's going to be great. All right, yes. I think that is about it for this evening. Thanks for going on this journey with us.
It was so fun.
Make sure to wherever you rate your movies,
like and subscribe.
like and subscribe this podcast and give Jungle Cruise a big old thumbs down.
Boo!
Boo! Boo! All right,
and with that,
bye.